The Ashburton Lyndhurst Irrigation Scheme in South Canterbury is halfway through a 3.5-year project due to complete in 2017. It's the result of years of planning and over $100 million of investment. John Van Pollenen is the chairman of the Ashburton Lyndhurst Scheme. More recently, he became chair of the Rangatata Diversion Race, the parent scheme of the Ashburton Lyndhurst project.
Ashburton Lyndhurst is shareholder of RDR, which has been now going for 75 odd years. So Ashburton Lyndhurst started back then, mainly under border dike irrigation, and then farmers started changing to spray irrigation. We were up to about 24,000 hectares at that stage. 6 years ago we piped 3,000 hectares of the scheme, and that's worked really well. We've easily saved our 18% water target that we were aiming for. So now we're expanding that over the whole scheme, and we'll be able to irrigate over 30,000 hectares with the same water. A reasonable percentage of our shareholders every year were wanting to change to spray irrigation, which meant they had to build ponds and then had to pump the water from there to get the pressure to run their spray irrigators. The Canterbury Plains obviously got a lot of fall on them, and it made sense to use pipe and gravity so there's no power required to actually spray irrigate. So that was one of the advantages, and the other advantage with open channel was it uses up about 100 hectares in total area in our scheme. With open channels, that all gets returned back to farmable land, and we save the 18% water. The shareholder numbers have stayed reasonably static at around 223. With the piping scheme coming on board, some of our smaller shareholders have elected to opt out of the scheme. A lot of small shareholders around Ashburton itself, and we're picking up bigger shareholders. The land has changed its use quite a bit over the last 6-7 years, from traditional sheep and crop. We're definitely seeing a move to dairy and dairy support. We expect that to increase as piping comes on stream and people are having to change to spray irrigation. A year ago, RDR got a nutrient discharge consent from ECAN, so RDR in its 70,000 hectares in total has the management of the nutrients. So obviously changing to spray irrigation has had a huge effect on the loss of nutrients out of it, because we can control the amount of water that we put on rather than flooding it on. And farmers are picking up all sorts of technology that they can with precision irrigation, that sort of thing, to try and minimise the nutrient loss, because at the moment we are intensifying, but if we can reduce the amount of nutrients we're doing at the same time, well then it's a win-win. It is a large project. It's a project that's around $100 million, including ponds, and that's just purely scheme costs. There's still a lot of on-farm costs that our own shareholders face. We did it over a 2-year consultation with our shareholders to get them on board. We had to get a 75% in favour to get this through, and when we took the vote we were at 82%. So we had a good positive result, but it was a timing thing and farmers coming on board that we had to do something to improve the efficiency of our water.
This location here is a turbine site on Ledgerwoods Road. It's right at the top of our scheme. This development went in about 4 or 5 years ago to pressurise this area we stand in the centre of, just over 900 hectares, servicing about 250 litres a second. We're diverting about 6 cumecs out of the main race, using that elevation to take the water through the turbine. It drops through a penstock about 6 metres water height, and we're using that water energy to drive the two pumps. One's a high pressure system for high pressure guns, and the other is a lower pressure system for centre pivots in the area. This is a map of the Ashburton Lyndhurst scheme. We're currently situated right below pond 3 here. This is one of the 5 scheme ponds that we'll be using to deliver the water through the pressurised pipes. So we're using the existing race system back up to the RDR canal to get the water from the RDR supply to each of these ponds, and from there it's all piped and pressurised, and none of the races will be required from those points. This is part of the Stage 2 upgrade development. We're using a combination of ponds and pipes to generate pressure through a gravity system. We're at the top of one of the lines here. It's quite a large 1200mm pipe, and that will carry the water further downstream, generating pressure on the way, and then will fan out into a network of smaller pipes into the service area downstream. This is one of the telemetry sites that we'll have for every single farm offtake once stage 2 is completed. So we can clearly see in real time what the farmer's using, how much water he's using, what his flow is, the upstream and downstream pressure to that farm. And we can also, if we ever needed to, we can close the valve or open the valve remotely to turn him on or off. 24/7 monitoring is what we get in here. The farmers will have web access to this telemetry information, so they can see exactly how much water they're using at any given time, how much water they've used for the season, and how much of their allocation they've got left. And we can monitor our system as a whole to be much more efficient with our delivery. Under restrictions then it obviously becomes even more critical that we know exactly what each farmer's taking, and for the farmer to make sure he's getting the most he possibly can from his available allocation.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.